Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. For this one we're going to return to the Black Isle, just to the north of Inverness. A very famous region actually in terms of their malt production there. They do a lot of stuff for whisky and nowadays for beer as well. But for this one we're going to visit the Black Isle Brewery, which is one of two breweries on the Black Isle. The other one being Cromarty in the north, of course. And we're going to have a taste of their Yellowhammer beer. And this brewery, of course, are quite famous for being the main sort of organic style brewery in Scotland. So as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery. It is quite short for this one, but if you don't want to stay with me for that, just fast forward a few minutes into the video and you'll get straight to the tasting. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with a link to my other Black Isle beer reviews, and I will be adding to these in the near future. So anyway, as I mentioned to you, Black Isle is located to the north of Inverness, which is the capital of the Highlands in Scotland. And this isle is also, of course, home to the Cromarty Brewery and the north of the isle. These guys are from the south of the Black Isle. But the brewery was founded in 1998 when David Galwin converted a group of farm buildings at Munlochy into a brewery. And the farm is called the Allen Grange. And back in his statistical account of 1790, Roderick Mackenzie described the land as being of superior quality for the brewer and distiller. So, as I say, this land is very, very famous for producing a lot of the malt that goes into whisky and craft beer that you'll get from Scotland. And the name Allen Grange actually translates from Gaelic as a fertile field of corn, which is obviously quite appropriate since there's all these breweries and distilling history there. So David has apparently worked in this region of Scotland for over 20 years and he's firmly committed to its preservation. And the idea he had behind founding this brewery was that he would be able to offer local establishments the ability to serve a locally brewed beer. Now, for their first 11 years, the brewery were operating a small 5-barrel brewing plant, but in the winter of 2008, they began to build a completely new 30-barrel plant in the new buildings that had been built on the farm where the brewery resides. Now, the construction work took about 18 months and it increased the conditioning capacity to 210 barrels, so a hugely dramatic increase in the brewery there. But the brewing is conducted by the team of Gareth Reid and Andrew Fraser, and they also have a new well on the farm which they can use to source their brewing liquor, and they also have 120 acres of land which they use to grow their own organic barley for malting. And the brewery have a cow called Molly who apparently gives them all the milk and eats the malt from the mash tun after they've produced their beer. But today they can apparently brew 10,000 litres of beer per day, which can be packaged in bottles, casks or kegs, and they send their beer all across Scotland and the rest of the UK, and also export to various different countries as well. You can visit the brewery for tours, and there's also a blog on the website where you can keep up to date with the latest goings on at the brewery. And the latest thing that I actually saw in there from them was that they were expanding their beer exports out to Alabama in the States. Quite a random state to choose actually, but they've got a deal to go out there, and you will see, those of you watching in America, I'm sure in the next few years, if you can't get this beer already, you will start to see it appearing out in your kind of respective states. But that's your brief history of the Black Isle Brewery. I hope you enjoyed that. But to list the other beers you can get from these guys, you get the Blonde, which is a European style pale lager. This is the one you actually find in Scotland most commonly in the supermarkets and stuff like that, but some of the other ones are starting to make more of an appearance there. You have Goldeneye, which is a golden ale, Heather Honey, which is a honey beer, Hibernator Oatmeal Stout, Porter, Red Kite Ale, that's a very nice one, Scotch Ale, and also the Yellowhammer, this guy here, which is a golden bitter. So now we can get on to the tasting of this beer. As I mentioned to you, this one is a golden bitter. It comes in at 4% on the Richter scale, and I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little quick look at the artwork of this one. It's the standard artwork that you get from Black Isle. They all have this kind of quite similar label there. Quite nicely done actually. It says on the side, it says Black Isle Brewery based near Inverness in the heart of the Scottish Highlands. We make a range of fresh, natural, organic beers from malted barley, wheat, water, hops and yeast. And it says beers brewed in paradise. Organic means the barley and hops are grown on farms without artificial fertilisers and herbicides. We at Black Isle Brewery believe that our beer is best for you and the environment too. You can see David Galwin has put his signature on the side of this bottle here, but very nicely presented beer. This is the bottle cap that is the standard one for all of the Black Isle beers, and the label is standard as well. They just change the colour of it depending on what beer you have. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting here. 4% golden bitter. As you can see, a nice smoky opening there. I should point out with this beer as well that it's my parents that brought me this one, and they always take the mick out of me for doing beer reviews saying that I'm an alcoholic and stuff, but you know, they can't really comment when they're feeding the habit, if you like, so I just like to remind them of that. But as you can see, it's poured a very nice, it actually smells really good without even paying too much attention to it. It smells beautiful, but you can just see here it's poured a slightly opaque but mainly transparent kind of rich golden strawy colour. There's a finger of a kind of solid white head there. It's quite frothy, but there are some kind of bumpy bubbles in it as well. I think that's just going to fade down towards the bottom of the glass. That'll become just a nice thin foamy layer. But let's give it a smell and see how we get on here. Now, as I said to you, it has a very kind of beautiful fresh aroma, this one. There's a lot of nice kind of hoppy character in it. It's quite a rich aroma. You've got a nice underline of a kind of caramel and toffee malt in here. Maybe a little bit of sort of biscuity character as well. You can smell the sort of dusty thing that you get from these organic beers, and this is something that I've mentioned in these videos before. I noticed this in Germany. When you have an organic beer, it has this quite kind of dusty aroma to it, and it's very, very nice. I do like the mouthfeel of these organic beers. But you've got quite a bit of fruit coming out of this one as well. Some grapefruit and kind of some grassy aromas as well. Maybe a little bit floral, but you can definitely pick out the kind of slightly earthy, dusty character that comes out of this one as well. And that's almost a trademark of the Black Isle Brewery, and a trademark of organic beers, I would point out. So it smells very, very nice. A lot of nice caramel and toffee, kind of biscuity malt as well. It does have a kind of big bready aroma too, but some nice grapefruit and grassy character coming out as well. So a beautiful beer. Let's get the rest of it poured, and then we can get on to the tasting here. Yeah, as you can see, it's poured beautifully. So let me just check that my camera's not playing up, and it should be okay. So there we are. Let's get on with the tasting here then. Beautiful beer. Well, I think this is my second review from the Black Isle Brewery, so I hope you enjoy this one. Cheers. Yeah, very interesting on the first taste. What comes out immediately that isn't particularly prominent in the aroma is the spicy character. Maybe it was a little hidden by the kind of dusty aromas you can pick out, but there's a definite spice to the malt base of this one, and it comes out quite abundantly in the thing. And you can just, even that first little gulp I've had, you feel this kind of really spicy. It's not quite cinnamony, but it's almost. It's just this really interesting spicy doughy flavour that comes out right on the first taste. It's got a very rich taste, this one. It's very complex actually. You've got some nice kind of sweet caramel and biscuity malts coming out, and there is an element of the kind of toasted bread. The big bready presence in this one is definitely toasted. It's a very complex beer, this, even just on a few sips. It's beautiful. And that dusty character that I mentioned is ever present in organic beers is definitely coming out there. You just feel it on the top, like a little bit on the top of the mouth and towards the front of the tongue. There's definitely that kind of dusty, slightly earthy character you get with these organic beers. But yeah, there's a hugely sort of spicy, doughy, bready malt base to this one. The sweet kind of caramel element to it as well, but the kind of spicy element to it is very, very prominent, I would say. And it's maybe, there is a sort of floral and aromatic flavour coming out of the hops as well, and I think that kind of complements it. Round the edges of the tongue, when you're into the aftertaste, you're getting that sort of fresh, floral, kind of grassy character that you expect of some of the American paleos and stuff like that. That's coming out in this one, so you can almost say this beer is perhaps a hybrid between a golden ale and a bitter beer. It's got a bit of both. It's got a big hoppy presence at the end, but it also has the nice kind of sort of spicy, bready malt base that you expect of the bitter style. Yeah, it's a really nice beer, this one. I mean, at the end, there's a little bit, in terms of the hoppy part of the beer, there's a tiny little bit of grapefruit coming out there, but I think it's mainly a kind of floral and aromatic flavour that's coming out of it. A nice grassy floral aromatic with just a little bit of the grapefruit kind of coming in. The grapefruit, I always find, gives you a nice little bit of a kind of sour quality, but you also get a bit of juiciness out it. And it's quite, I would say in the finish that this one's a little bit more dry, which makes me say it's a wee bit more kind of aromatic-y than grapefruit, if that makes sense. There's a tiny little bit of juicy character coming out at the end. and that'll be from the grapefruit. But I do think at the end it's mainly, as I say, a mainly floral and grassy element coming out of this one. But it's very nice. I mean, the other thing with this beer is how it makes the transition of flavours. It comes in and you get this immediate kind of blast on the tongue of a kind of spicy, bready and doughy yeast character. That stays towards the back of the tongue. You get just a little bit of the kind of fruity and grassy kind of freshness coming around the edge of the tongue, and that sort of builds and moves towards. The spice character grows throughout the flavour of the beer, and it becomes a little bit more sort of stingy, if you like, on the tongue, or maybe that's not the best word. It becomes more prominent on the palate, and then the kind of freshness builds out of the beer as well, and that's the grassy and sort of aromatic flavours that are coming out there. Into the aftertaste, it's definitely this kind of lingering aromatic freshness with that sort of nice spicy character that I'm talking about there, and there is just a little juicy element from the grapefruit in this one, I think. But yeah, it's a very, very nice beer. And it has, I would say in terms of the mouthfeel, it's very light-bodied. It has a kind of moderate level of carbonation. It's quite nice. It complements the kind of, it helps bring out the carbonation level, and it helps bring out the hoppy part of the beer at the end. If it was too smooth, this beer would simply just be it would be a golden bitter rather than being a sort of golden ale bitter hybrid, if that makes sense. In terms of the taste, obviously they market it as a golden bitter, which it kind of quite clearly fits into that category. But it's got a nice, as I said, it's got a nice little bit of dry character in the end, but also to bring out the fruity flavours you have this little juicy element that kind of comes along the palate, and it's got a nice hoppy bitterness at the end as well that complements, it almost kind of balances out that big spicy malt base that you have in this beer, which is very nice. But I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful beer. If you do get the chance to try anything from Black Isle, it's almost as if they have it's almost like a kind of established style, if you like, and some experimental styles, but they have this really unique character from the sort of organic malts and hops and stuff that they use in, and it gives it this almost, I always describe it as being a kind of chalky mouthfeel. This one doesn't have it so much compared to the other ones I've tried from it, but it almost gives you a little earthy, kind of dusty feel to it, which is very, very nice. And I do like organic beers. If they're done properly, they can be very, very good, and in my opinion Black Isle does it very, very well. So what I would recommend is that if you get the chance to try anything from Black Isle, definitely do it. Which beer I would recommend for you to start with is a bit of a different question. There's quite a few good ones from this brewery, but I would just say to you, you know, pick a style you like, and you shouldn't go wrong with it. Maybe if you want to try a range of them, start with the lighter one and gradually move darker. But I mean, maybe the blonde beer or this one is a good place to start, actually. But they're all very, very good beers, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed. So get out and try the Black Isle beers. I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. I will be doing more from the Black Isle Brewery, so subscribe to the channel if you're interested in that. Please comment and let me know your own thoughts on this beer if you do happen to have tried it. And as usual, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you're enjoying my beer reviews, and we soon will be doing the number 300 one for you. So I'll catch you with that. Cheers.